Welcome to From the Hat, a PONDcast, the program where every episode is a different topic and all of the topics for the shows are drawn from the hat. Anything is fair game. More people tolerate than truly enjoy what they do. I don't want to live a shoulda life. You can find the right path. Destinations can change. Why not take the risk? Effort doesn't mean you're going to succeed. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. On today's show, we have a special guest, Benjamin Phillips. Ben's an actor, scriptwriter, creator. He's originally from Utah, but he's based in LA. He's lived a Forrest Gump type life, I'd like to say. He's previously been an opera singer, a banker, a football coach, youth counselor, financial consultant, and nonprofit director. He's a husband of 12 years and a father to 5 awesome daughters, and I can attest to that. I have met his daughters. They are all wonderful. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Anything else you'd like to let us know about yourself?
I think that about covers it. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. So let's get going. So let's see what the hat brings us today.
Let's get into it.
Ooh. Here we have a quote by Mike Murdoch. The secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine. So there we go. Routine, future, things going on. Ben, what does that tell you right off? What do you get?
Well, secret of your future. If you want to get somewhere tomorrow, you have to start today. Reminds me of an object lesson that someone taught years ago about a train that is on its way somewhere and ends up somewhere completely different than it's supposed to be, and it's because of one piece of track that was off by an inch. And so I suppose if you want to get to somewhere in your future, you start by making the path toward it in the present. So
many people in our modern social media day and age, so many people see, the Instagram reality or Facebook reality or whatever, and people think one, that's not reality, but two, you see people at their various level of quote unquote success, or you see people doing things and you think, oh, I want to do that. I want to be an actor. I want to be an athlete. I want to be an artist. Now, yes, there are some things where sometimes people just fall into it. But I would say by and large, those people worked very, very hard to get where they're at. And we don't take into consideration that track that was laid or that they laid to make those things a reality.
Sure. Well, and it's interesting too, because you can work 24/7, just all out all the time, and still not make it to some specific places if you don't know what the path is to get there. I was remembering, as you were talking, another object lesson, this one from my dad. Now, I am not a great golfer, but there are some principles in it that are really helpful. Now, and when you're putting, my dad taught me that you don't just aim for the hole, you create the path that the ball is going to travel between where it is now and getting it into the hole, and you don't hit it towards the hole, you hit it along the path, right? And I think so many times people don't understand the terrain or don't understand, what those little steps in between here and there are, and so they're pounding their head against a wall trying to get somewhere when all they have to do is take 4 steps to the right and keep walking, and then they'll actually get somewhere.
Yeah.
So there is obvious. I'm not trying to contradict you. I'm just saying there are a lot of times where I've seen people who are trying their very hardest to get something, but they're going about it the wrong way, and they never get there because no one ever helps them see the right path.
Absolutely. You reminded me of something that I had a band teacher in high school. He said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect.
Right.
And so many times just doing things repeatedly and making something a habit doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be beneficial for us, for the goals that we want.
Absolutely.
I mean, here it's talking about the secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine. So there's going to need to be some planning that takes place.
Absolutely.
You got to know where you want to be, where you want to go, and then to be able to plan out how you're going to get there. And if I'm going to need to go from point A to point Z, sometimes I might not be able to figure that out all completely at one time, but I can
Sure.
definitely figure out how to go from A to B.
Right.
And then B to C, and so on and so on.
Well, and you make a really interesting point, because having that destination clearly in mind makes such a massive difference. You're obviously familiar with the quote from Through the Looking Glass, where the Cheshire Cat asks Alice, well, Alice asks, which path should I take? And the cat asks, well, where do you want to go? And she says, I don't really know. Then he says, it doesn't really matter then, does it?
Right.
I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so having the destination in mind absolutely dictates the path that you take.
And I think understanding your destination as well, I'm picturing, walking through a forest. I've spent many, many hours in the mountains and walking through trees and brush. And there is a definite benefit to knowing where you're going versus having that short-sighted vision of just your immediate surroundings. Because when you know where you're going, if something becomes an impediment or something gets in your way, you can usually, like you said, you could sidestep and you can move around. You can move around, but you still
Right.
keep your destination in sight. I think that's the same with our personal goals and our what we want in our life. If we can keep that destination or that goal in focus, the path becomes a little more plastic. It's able to shift. And
Yep.
so if we do experience a failure or something, an impediment that comes up, we are more able to make the adjustments that we need to still stay on the path that will bring us to success.
Yeah. Now, as you've been hiking and as you've been in the mountains and all of that, have you ever been following a path and then after a certain length of time realized that the path that you thought you were on is no longer actually a path?
Absolutely.
I've had that happen a few times, and it's so interesting how all of a sudden you're on this kind of treacherous terrain where you're like, this is not where I want to be. And you backtrack and you realize, oh, I was supposed to turn here, and it looked like a perfectly obvious path, but after you see what actually is supposed to happen, you're like, how did I miss it?
Right.
I don't really have any point with that. I was just...
I do. Like, how awesome is that when that happens in our life?
Yeah.
There have been times, hey, this seems like the total obvious path I need to take. And I'm going and things are going, hey, I'm like, this is great. I'm going good. And then the path ends. Well, hold on. This was the good path. I was going great. And just like you said, you take a step back and you backtrack and you okay, well, where did this go off? If you're open to it and if you're looking for it, you can go back and you can find the right path. And I think it's great when you do hit those things because it allows you to know that one path that I thought was going to be really good isn't the right way.
Right.
And it helps you commit to the other ways. I mean, it even to the idea like Thomas Edison, in paraphrasing, said, failed on the light bulb 472 times. It wasn't
Right.
failing. It just, I knew 472 times to not make it.
Right.
And then you're able to put your attention into better, more effective paths to help get you to your goal and destinations.
Random thought here. One of these specific times that I remember going off on the path that actually wasn't the right path, it got to a point where it became kind of dangerous, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking at one point, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get back safely to the path. And so my thought is, at what point do you push through something difficult to get to something awesome on the other side versus saying, I need to turn back now for safety?
That is a good question. I think that it's very situational. It's very individualized for every person who's experiencing that. But
Sure.
because there is benefit and there is growth that comes through pushing on,
Right.
and experiencing the hardship.
I think it actually leads us back to the point that we were getting to at the very beginning of to the question that this entire conversation is about. What is the end goal that you want to get to? Because if you are off on a dangerous path and where you're trying to get to is through the dangerous section or whatever it is, it may be worth it to go through something hard, to do something that might not be the safest route if it gets you to where you're going. But if it's just a distraction from your actual goals and where you really want to be, obviously it's not worth it to push through something dangerous to get somewhere you don't want to go.
Right. And that's, I think that's one of the keys, is that you need to have enough self-awareness to know between a distraction and to know, like, okay, I'm not progressing anymore with this.
Right.
And I think so many times in life, we get stuck in just daily routines of, for example, years ago, I had a job and loved it. Things were going great. And started to just have a feeling like, you know what, I think this needs to be done. And I didn't do anything about it. Like, that was just a recurring feeling like, oh, well, maybe I need to change scenery, but because it was a routine, and I just kept going and I just kept doing it. And it wasn't until I got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to stop this. This is not it's not good for me. I'm stressed. I'm this. And I was realizing that, like, I was just spinning my wheels. I was just going because that's what you do. I went to this job, I went to work, and I did that. And it wasn't until I had to step back and have that realization, and I went, you know what, this needs to stop. Yes. And so then I had to consciously say, okay, I'm closing that door. And I left that job and, started another, and that was way fulfilling and awesome. And it was, it was wonderful to be able to do that. But I sat for a few years going to work and just feeling like, this is just routine.
Right.
And so again, I think it's important to understand where you're going, your destination, what you're after. But I also think it's important to understand that destinations can change.
Oh, absolutely.
And that it's okay to have you go, this seems like a better thing. Now, with that said, I don't think it's not good to be flighty and go, oh, well, this is hard, I'm going to switch. This is hard, I'm going to switch. This is hard, I'm going to switch.
Right.
There is, there's credence and credibility that comes through persevering and working and staying consistent. And
yes.
You're not going to climb to the top of the mountain if you start climbing every tree you see because you like climbing trees. I mean,
or if you see another mountain nearby and think, I want to climb that one instead.
That one looks good. Yeah. You're just going to be sitting working way harder than you need to.
Right.
But it is important that we recognize the benefit of our routine instead of just, your routine shouldn't be passive.
Right.
It shouldn't be something you should be doing. Everything you should be doing should have a deliberate action and a deliberate goal and outcome, which the outcome might not always be what you expect, but you have a desired outcome from the actions that you're performing.
Sure. Well, and as you said, I mean, sometimes the outcome is completely different, radically different than what we expect, and sometimes that's a good thing. As we were talking a moment ago about taking different paths, I remembered a poem, and I don't remember who it's by, but it's a satire of Robert Frost's
Two Roads Diverge.
Two Roads, yes. And it says, I'm paraphrasing, I think. I don't remember it specifically, but it says, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. Since then I've been completely lost. Thanks for nothing, Robert Frost. So both you and I have had very road less traveled life experiences, and there are good things and bad things about that. For myself, I wouldn't ever recommend that someone do life the way that I've done it. Because for me, I felt like it was very spiritually guided and inspired, but that's not, it's something that I felt like was right for me. I don't think that my path is right for everyone.
Right.
So there is definitely something secure and safe about taking the road more traveled. You know where you're going, you know what the destination is, and that's a great thing. But there are definitely great things that I have discovered by taking the road less traveled. So anyway, it's just side segue for a moment, but back to your main point of the habits and the daily routines.
Daily routines, they're definitely important, as I believe, as long as they are deliberate.
Yes.
I mean, routines and habits are great, but when it starts becoming just because of a routine, or just because
that's what you're supposed to do.
That's what you're supposed to do. I mean,
Yeah.
You're just floating along. I often have the image of tubing in a river, where you just sit in a tube and you just float along, and you are letting your path be directed by the course of the river, by currents and the river and how it's flowing. And although that is fun and relaxing, it's kind of unempowering, because you're just sitting there and just going. And when life becomes that, where you're just like, you're just complacency, and you're just kind of going along, it loses meaning, because you're not invested at all in your life and in your outcomes. And so even though the road more traveled might be something it's comfortable, it's predictable, something that you can do without much effort, the road to, I believe, greater reward, greater fulfillment, greater empowerment comes through the deliberate choices to pull out your oar on the river and start paddling against the current and get you to where you want to go.
Sure. Well, and to kind of be a foil to that just for a moment, there are a lot of people who just really do like the daily grind, who really do like the way the river's going. And for those people, awesome.
Right.
Congratulations. You have an extremely streamlined process to get where you're going. You just paddle with the river. But I think you're right. I think that for many people, what they want isn't where the river is taking them.
Yeah. I haven't done any research or any polling to see the job satisfaction rate of people, but I would assume more people tolerate than truly enjoy what they do. Sure. And speaking of Robert Frost, there's another quote of his from a poem called Two Tramps in Mudville. And in it, whole backstory and a whole story to it, which we're not going to get into the plot of it. But the quote is, "My goal in life is to make my vocation and my avocation one, as my eyes are in sight."
Nice.
And that's something that I've always had as a goal, in that I want what I love to do, my avocation, become my vocation. They say, when you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life, type of idea.
Right.
I want what I enjoy and what I'm good at to be what I do.
Right.
And that has taken some very deliberate choices, and that's taken some road less traveled, or paddling upstream, or just getting off the river sometimes and climbing somewhere. It has taken some drastic changes, but I have come to a point in my life where I've learned that why not take the risk?
Absolutely.
To live a life without regrets, and to go, you know what? I should have done that. I don't want to live a shoulda life. I want to live a I did. So it's like, when I feel I need to pursue something, I'm going to pursue it.
Yes.
Because I have come to find so much satisfaction and joy and fulfillment through those things. And the key is, back to the quote, is that the secret to your future is in your daily routine, is that when those goals come about and I go, you know what, I need to be there. I might not know exactly. I don't have a map that says, oh, hey, this is exactly how you get to that goal.
Right.
But I can definitely work towards it. And I can definitely do research and study and practice and whatever I need.
And learn from the successes of those who have gone where you want to be.
Right.
Yeah, so Cindy's taking a class right now that she's really enjoying, and I'm really enjoying vicariously through her.
I love it.
But one of the things they were talking about was how you want your actions to be driven by your values. Because all of us value different things. Some people just really, really value safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's the biggest priority for them is making sure that they are safe. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And so their actions are going to reflect that priority. For other people, they might value, I don't know, adventure, or they might value chivalry, or they might value learning, or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as we figure out what matters to us, it becomes much easier to determine whether the actions that we're making are going to align with our values, are going to align with what is important to us, or if it's taking us further away.
Yeah, that reminded me of a quote by Albert Einstein, where he says, "Strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value." And I think that's what we value, like you said, but also to be of value to the world.
Sure.
To be a contributing positive force for good. But it's absolutely important that you do things according to your values, and make those things in line. You're going to find fulfillment as you do that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a key to success. That's a key to, I think, the next level. It takes you out of that just the doldrums and just doing things because it's expected of you or of anything else, but it takes you to like, hey, there's value. I value this. I am pursuing that which I value. That's what I find important. And again, yeah, whether it's safety, chivalry, service to others,
absolutely,
whatever you are valuing, pursue it. Totally go for it. Pursue it and go after it, because you're gonna find the best you if you do that. Like you said before, be willing and be, I guess I'd say, humble or malleable enough to to make changes, to be able to go, oh, you know what, this isn't working. Effort doesn't mean you're going to succeed. Be willing to realize that, oh, I might need to change this here. Oh, this isn't working. Let me change this. And if you're flexible enough, and I think you're able to adapt yourself to the situations, to learnings and things you've had, you're able to continue to move forward. The ever popular and oft quoted Zig Ziglar said, if you learn from defeat, you haven't really lost. And that idea of failures are going to come, don't let that get you down. Learn from it, pivot, move on. And you're able to do that.
It's remarkable. You use the word adaptable. It is remarkable how adaptable humans are. We go through all of these crazy things in life, and we just keep going. Whether it's all of a sudden being out of a job, or all of a sudden being in the middle of a pandemic where everything is shut down and you're staying home, or
Right.
wearing masks everywhere. It is amazing to me how quickly people have become used to masks, by the way. Not to get political about anything,
Right.
but I see people wearing masks outside, walking by themselves, in a situation where the mask does absolutely nothing for them, but they're so used to wearing it that they just keep wearing it.
Right. In their car by themselves.
Yes, exactly. It's just humans are so adaptable that we just take whatever is going on, and if it's not a conscious thought process to analyze it, we just go with it.
Right.
And so one thing that I was thinking about as I was thinking about that is that we are going to rise to the challenge of whatever is going on around us, we're going to be okay in whatever situation we're in, as long as our mentality is that we're going to be okay. So would we rather be in a situation where we're just surviving, or would we be in a position where we are becoming something greater, where we're going towards something greater?
Mm-hmm.
Because either way, we're going to adapt to it.
Right.
So why not push ourselves to where we want to be?
I'm going to answer that with because sometimes we're just comfortable.
And if you value comfort, that is great.
Because sometimes you're just comfortable. And now we've both been football coaches.
Yes.
As a coach, you see, like, you have a different perspective from the athletes that you're working with. You know, sometimes football isn't easy. And I'm going to say every sport, there's no sport that's easy. You're going to have to put some effort in regardless of what it is. But football's not easy. And I've gotten some athletes over the years that value comfort.
Yes.
That value ease. But they also want to be on the football team, and they want to be the star, and their parents are like, oh, well, they want to be, you know, and
competing values.
Right. You have competing values. And there's a point in life where you have to sacrifice one. You have to, sometimes when those competing values, you have to be willing to sacrifice one to reach the goals that you're after. If you want comfort, great, that's fine.
Football's not the place to find it.
Football might not be the place to find it. But if you're willing, if you want to be, you know, if you want to be on the starting roster and you want to be doing that, well, there's a few things that you have to do. And as a coach, that's one of the most fulfilling things that I had was some of these athletes would come in and they just know what they want. They know football's fun. They like watching it on TV, and there's a toughness to it. I'm on the football team. and they like that.
Yes.
And as a coach, you have a little different perspective of, I know how to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about, well, learn from the experience of others, than what they've done and how they've experienced and gotten success and achieved some of the same or similar goals. And as a football coach, you're there and you can go and say, hey, I know this sucks. Doing this drill, running like that, rolling around in pads and sweating on, 100-degree days, and like, it's hard. I get it. Yep. I personally was there as well back in the day. I
have also run so much that I threw up.
Yeah, it does happen. But I can also tell you that it's worth it. Like, all this practice, you've got your 4 days a week of practice, and then you've got the game. And when all that routine and those things that you've practiced with become second nature, succeeding when it's time to perform becomes so much easier.
Oh, and so much sweeter.
Because you're invested in it. It's just like, I've put in my blood, sweat, and tears into this, and it's so much sweeter because of that gratification of, I have done this. But that's with gratification. That's a lesson that you have to learn often in life, in that to achieve gratification, sometimes you have to postpone it or delay it, and put in the work that you're not going to get the gratification immediately, and you're not going to be shooting like LeBron James, that you see on ESPN every night,
right,
by just buying the shoes that he wears.
Right.
You need to put in the work. And so this is a little, where I'm going to tangent here a little bit, because I'm also a true believer in everybody has individual strengths. And I think it's important to come to a point in your life where you know what your strengths are. There's a quote by Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy, if you ever watched Discovery Channel, where he said that all because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you won't suck at it. And I think that's an important thing. And it's yes. I've heard some people say, oh, that's a negative. I'm like, no, it's not negative. It just means know your strengths, know your abilities. Now, I'm a very firm believer that things can be taught. You can learn and you can grow and you can adapt. But another thing that, I heard someone recently talking about a basketball player who was like 7 feet tall.
Mhm.
And they said, the coach says, you can't teach height.
Right.
There are things that we all have ingrained in us that are our natural strengths, that we do well naturally. Michael Jordan, I love basketball,
Yes.
but I don't think that if
you had spent all your
the time
practicing and playing
that he did, I would be good, but I don't think I'd be a Michael Jordan. I'm 6'5", I have been around 300 pounds for the bulk of my life. If I really liked ballet, I don't think I'm built for it. Like, I'm just, it's not a natural strength for me. Now, could I become an amazing dancer? I'm sure I could. But
I've seen you dance. I think you would be great.
Yeah, see? But you need to accept reality sometimes. And that's one thing and that's a hard thing as a coach, when you've got someone who really wants to do this, and the reality is, you're probably not really built for this. This you don't have either the physical nature, you don't have the we're trying to get the attitude and the emotional and all that developed, but it's just, you got to know your strength. As we as individuals can come to recognize our strengths, either by looking at what we do well, or have other people tell us, oh, hey, you know what, you seem to do this really well. Go after those things, or see if you can develop those. And other talents can be developed, but I really think it's important, instead of going after the ones that you struggle with, like the ones that are going to be really hard, use your strengths to develop those.
Right.
And so there's this part of life where it's like, you've got to know what you do well, because it doesn't matter how passionate you are, you might still just suck at it.
I remember a kid who wanted to play linebacker, but he was just the sweetest, kindest kid you've ever met in your life. And it was not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I don't think it should happen, because it would have changed his nature to the point that he would have become someone different, which I think would have been really sad for him.
Yeah.
And he just didn't have the nasty streak that you need to be able to play linebacker well. And he ended up being a receiver, and he did great. But you're right. I mean, there are people who can break those boundaries. Muggsy Bogues.
Yeah.
You're going to come across people who, for
just
whatever
really
reason...
quick, for those who don't know, Muggsy Bogues was a basketball player in the 90s who was 5'4"?
Something like that, yeah.
It's like 5'3", 5'4" in the NBA.
Yes.
And he succeeded very well, played for Charlotte. So.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, very highly thought of, did really, really well as a really, really short guy. But that's not going to be most people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if there is enough desire, like you said, you can do hard things. You can break through some of those barriers, but it's going to come at a much higher cost, if it's possible at all.
Yeah.
I think going back to what you value, if you value something enough to sacrifice literally everything for it, then go for it, because that's what is going to bring you satisfaction. Whether you attain it or not, I suppose is irrelevant if that's all you care about.
Right.
And so I'm an actor, as we mentioned at the beginning, and I see people who have been actors for decades and never, quote unquote, made it. Still struggling to get day player roles.
Yeah.
Still working as a waiter to pay the bills in the meantime, you know. But being an actor is all they want to do. There is nothing else that they want to do. And so they keep doing it.
Yeah.
And honestly, some of them just aren't ever going to make it. But they're going to keep trying, because that's what they value. And so if there is something that you value that much, if there's something that is your everything, then yeah, sacrifice whatever you need to get yourself in line to get where you want to be. But for most people, there are going to be things that you can do that line up with your strengths. And if the things that line up with your strengths line up with your values, do that.
That's where your strengths and your values, I mean, that's where like the idea of your vocation or avocation coming together.
Right.
That's where it's like, it's perfect. It's like just the golden ratio.
Yes.
I believe everybody can get there. Some people are stubborn because they want something so bad. I was thinking about Tim Tebow. I love Tim Tebow. The guy's an amazing athlete. I mean, nobody can question that. He didn't succeed in the NFL as a quarterback. He was a great quarterback in college, went to the NFL, didn't really succeed. We can sit and discuss and argue why he didn't succeed in the NFL, and that's a totally different thing. That's off topic. But either way,
different conversation.
Yes, he didn't succeed in the NFL. And he went and he played minor league baseball. He did all right in minor league baseball. The guy's an amazing athlete. I mean, he could probably pick up anything. But he just recently returned to the NFL, and he's playing tight end. He had a goal to be a quarterback.
Right. Didn't
work. Then he went to baseball, and that just wasn't his thing. He grew up playing baseball, but he's a football player, and that's that's a goal he has. And so I was amazed when he came back this season as a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
To have that mindset, because again, I've known quarterbacks that are like, I'm a quarterback.
I mean, that's most quarterbacks, if we're being honest.
Oh, absolutely. And he went, I want to play. What do I need to do to play? Let me give tight end a shake. We talked about that as the beginning. Is that, well, what's his goal? Is his goal to play quarterback, or is his goal to be in the NFL? And he was willing, and again, I guess it doesn't really matter regardless of if he made the cuts or not, but he was willing to pivot, to make an adjustment to accomplish that goal. And maybe that goal changed a little bit. Maybe he did say, originally, I wanted to be a quarterback, but it superseded, I want to play in the NFL. I want to be a professional football player. And so he made the necessary adjustments to become a player, and he became a tight end instead of the quarterback, which wasn't going to happen.
Right. Well, it's a powerful lesson in the ability to pivot in your, as you said, to be humble enough to say, this isn't working, let's try something else. Let's be able to adjust to the situation in front of me.
He didn't get what he had originally worked for.
Right.
And he has shown this adaptability, this flexibleness to, okay, I can let that one go. I'm going to try this. I'm going to go to baseball. Oh, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go to tight end. But I mean, he's shown a flexibility and an adaptability that I think is important for everyone to recognize, that sometimes you might not succeed at what you put all your effort towards. Well, that's okay. We adapt. And like you were saying earlier, we adapt very, very well. And I think the more deliberate your adaptations are, instead of just going with the flow, and the more consciousness you make your adaptations, the more purposeful they become, and the more they will help you to achieve and to grow and to, become more.
Yes.
Ben, do you have any closing thoughts here about the quote? And just as a refresher, the original quote was by Mike Murdoch, and he says, "The secret of your future is hidden in your daily routine." I'll let you give any sum up or any additional thoughts.
I think we've discussed it pretty thoroughly. I think as long as your routine is aligned with your goals, and as long as you have an actual goal that you're working towards, and as long as that goal is aligned with the values that you actually have as your top priority, then what you do today is going to get you where you want to be, and it's going to be a happy ending. But if you don't have the goal in mind, and if the goal doesn't align with your values, then what you're doing today to get towards that goal isn't going to matter, because you're not going to enjoy either the process or the ending. And if you don't have any goal at all, then it doesn't really matter.
Like the Cheshire Cat. Well, where do you want to go? I don't know. Well, it doesn't matter what you do.
Exactly.
So there it is. Well, that's a great summary, Ben. Again, thank you for being on the show today, and tune in next time to see what comes from the hat.
Can't wait.
You bet. And we'll see you on the flip side. Testing.